If you've watched a recent The Struggle video news, you saw over 100 people standing and sitting in various places at Union Station in New Haven, the railroad station. They were blocking access, and the purpose was protesting the genocide in Gaza, trying to put in effect that slogan, if we don't get no justice, then you don't get no peace. I'll be speaking to Tacey Hutten. She's a Yale undergrad studying ethnicity, race, and migration. She's an activist and an organizer. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Great. Let's describe in broad terms what happened on that day, and that was March 28th. Am I right?
Yeah, March 28th around 5:30 p.m., right? Evening rush hour.
If I was someone in the Great Hall of the station, what would I have seen?
Sure. So the Great Hall of the station is like the main seating area. It's the first thing you see when you walk into the station. Um, when you walk in to your left, there are the Union Station timetables. And then right below that, there are the escalators and the stairs that take you to the train platforms. So like I said, at around 5:30, over 100 of us came together, locked arms, locked down using lock boxes, and blockaded that area off, accompanied by a banner drop over the timetables, all calling on Rosa DeLauro to divest from genocide, divest from Israel, and the US war machine more broadly.
So where was the banner put again?
The banner was dropped over the timetables. So it was designed to mirror the look of those timetables. In the spirit of no business as usual, we wanted to make sure that we were creating as much of a disruption as possible and really calling attention to the genocide and to some of the key like facts and figures, and also Connecticut's role in sustaining the genocide. So where normally it would say train times, and then the location, for us, it said statistics, over 33,000 killed, including over 13,000 children, 70% of homes in Gaza damaged or destroyed, over 1 million people displaced, et cetera. Then
Message about Rosa, a message directly to Rosa DeLauro.
yes, a message directly to Rosa DeLauro calling on her to stop funding a genocide.
Yeah, and she's very powerful. She was the head of the Appropriations Committee, still a very powerful Democrat. Now, we saw some chanting in the videos that were on Instagram. What were people chanting?
All sorts of things. We had chanting, singing. One of my favorites is "Justice is our demand, no peace on stolen land." I think it's a really powerful call to the fact that that means, in occupied Palestine and also here in the United States, here in New Haven. Singing songs about solidarity, about hope. I think just symbolized that it was really powerful coming together of people from all sorts of different backgrounds.
So people were at the stairs and the escalator, and if someone actually wanted to get on a train, was that impossible?
Not impossible. No, we wanted to be sensitive to the fact, of course, that everyone has a different positionality towards why they're getting on the train. Some people might be going to work, might need have childcare responsibilities, and so if push came to shove, like people were able to get on the trains, but there was quite an obstacle to get through. It's also part of the reason we targeted the evening rush hour. Not as many people were on their way to work. People were just on their way home.
So let me go back a bit. So why pick the train station in particular?
A lot of reasons. In part, we've talked about, what it means to enact no business as usual during a genocide. For us, part of that meant that there could be no travel as usual while 1.5 million Palestinians are trapped in Rafah. They're under attack. They're starving to death. They have no place to go. And that's all in the city that they were told would be safe. That's unacceptable. Connecticut demands better. We as young people demand better. We also wanted to call back to a lot of the activism that's been happening in the region over the last number of months. I think it was 153 days before we occupied Union Station. Hundreds of protesters shut down Grand Central, demanding a ceasefire. And for me, it weighs heavy that's 153 days of constant bombing, of torture, and now starvation. And yet Rosa DeLauro, our other elected officials, have stayed largely silent. They haven't acted. They certainly haven't acted in a way that's sufficient and conducive to justice. So those are all reasons why, we decided to occupy Union Station. We wanted to do something that would be unavoidable, unignorable, and really just demonstrate how critical this is to each and every one of us.
So what reactions did you get from average people in the station who are there only to get on trains or wait for people?
Yeah, absolutely. We saw a pretty mixed bunch of reactions. There were unfortunately some people who, were pretty upset. They either stormed through us, kicked certain protesters. Others, and this I would say is probably the large majority of people that we saw, were like quietly supportive. They smiled at us, waved at us as they walked by. But then I think that what I was most struck by is that there were a few people who, either on their way to the trains or getting off of them, decided to sit down and join us. One man who was sitting by me joined us for multiple hours, which for me was just a really humbling and inspiring experience. I think it goes to show that, the world by and large stands with Palestine. This isn't a struggle of the few. This is a struggle of the masses. And also a struggle that's really important to Connecticut. $69 million of our federal taxes every year are spent on weapons and equipment for Israel, for the Israeli military. Particularly given the fact that there are people who in New Haven will sleep on the streets tonight. There are children who will go to bed hungry. The people of Connecticut don't consent to our tax money being sent to help finance a genocide, especially when so many issues within our own communities remain unaddressed. It's unacceptable. And like I said earlier, we demand better.
Now, how did the authorities act during this action? Were there arrests?
There were arrests, around 10 of our comrades. There's been some back and forth on the numbers. Around 10 of our comrades were arrested. I believe by the MTA Transit Authority. There were a few different police forces there, varying levels of aggression. Fortunately, no one was, severely injured. And since then, we've been able to check in with everyone, and everyone's safe and doing well, ready to keep fighting.
So are there court cases pending?
I believe so. I wasn't one of the folks arrested, so I'm not sure exactly, but yes, my understanding is that there are court cases pending over the next couple of days.
What has been the reaction from Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, if any?
Yeah, I personally can say that I've been really disappointed by her reaction. I don't remember if it was to the Register or the Independent, but she gave some response to the action. Hasn't had, the courage to respond to the demand itself. She put out a statement saying that she supports our right to protest. She respects our right to protest, and claims that she has worked hard to get humanitarian aid into Gaza before and during the conflict. We're glad that she respects our right to protest, but quite frankly, the rest of that is pretty blatantly untrue. First of all, it's a genocide. It's not a conflict. And second of all, she, a couple of weeks ago, voted to pass a bill that not only sent $3.8 billion of aid to Israel, but cut funding for UNRWA for the next year until March of 2025. UNRWA is the organization that supports the majority of Palestinians through humanitarian aid right now. So to say that she has been working hard to get humanitarian aid into Gaza, and then in the next breath, vote to cut funding for that aid while millions of people are on the brink of starvation, it's unconscionable. It's disingenuous. We're going to keep fighting until we receive better.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the business of UNRWA. I mean, in the last decade, Trump suspended it. Biden brought it back. Biden suspended it. It was all done by a presidential decree. But this is a law. This goes on for a year, and it becomes very easy to extend it because there's a precedent. Yeah, very good point. It's disappointing. DeLauro's very good friend Nancy Pelosi has taken a big step, signing on with 40 others in Congress to oppose further weapons deliveries to Israel, but we haven't heard anything from DeLauro about this.
No, we haven't. And like I just said, and she recently voted for a bill that sent $3.8 billion in aid for Israel's genocide. I was on Twitter the other day and I saw a tweet calling DeLauro the top champion for children. And I have to admit that I was a little bit frustrated. She says that she cares about solving food insecurity and educational inequity, cares about children. And yet she's sending billions of dollars of aid to an army that has killed over 13,000 Palestinian kids. And
injured. I mean, I was listening to Democracy Now! Yesterday, I believe, and one of the surgeons was talking about these horrible injuries that these people the kids are facing. It was unreal.
Yeah, and being treated without adequate medical support, without anesthesia, without the ability to sanitize your tools, your hands. It's some of the most horrifying imagery I've seen.
Last question. How did you first get involved in this question? Is this something new, or have you been working on the Palestinian issue for a while?
I'm pretty new to this struggle. This is an occupation that's lasted for 75 years. I was really mobilized in October, November of this year. So, I'm learning a lot. I have to say, I've been met with the most incredible, dedicated community of people I've ever been a part of. So, I might be new to this struggle, but I'm sure in it for the long haul. So.
Great. Don't hit yourself on the head. I mean, I didn't get involved till my mid-30s. So there's that. Now, I understand there's no formal group that took part or organized this action. If people want to get involved, is there some way, or should they just show up when they see things going on, or how does that?
Gosh. Yeah. First step, or one option, I'll say, not necessarily the first step, is yes, if you see something happening, be like one of the people who, instead of heading to their trade, decided to sit down with us. I promise you, we'll welcome you with open arms. Other ways to get involved, if you know someone who is involved, friends, family, community members, usually you'll see us out and about. We're each and every one of us, I can guarantee you, would be happy to talk about different ways to get involved. You just stop us and ask. So yeah, that's what I'll say.